share it with those that are not going to make it today, because it is important that you watch this video and understand the changes, because we went through this with the other servers, and we found out that because of the changes, there were many questions about the daily tasks, and just some small changes of terminologies that was just kind of creating some issues. So it was important that we create this session and record it and then share it to make sure that you understand these new features. Like, of course, we add these features to help you reduce the amount of time with your customers and with your drivers, save you time. That's mainly what it's for. And also create better documents, better invoices, better trip sheets for your drivers. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. First of all, one of the things that is coming, the change that is coming, is that more and more we're going to be moving on to the browser access and not the thin client. The thin client will be basically not completely unsupported, but eventually we'll have to stop supporting it because of the way that it creates issues with many different things like printing or even access. But the browser seems to work very well for us. It's the new technology. So every one of you will have an address that you go to log in, and then from there you log into to Driveware. So here, basically everything is the same. You won't give up any functionality when you use the browser. It works just the same, and it's just as fast. You could search is just as fast. Printing is even faster. You notice that when I go to print, it's even faster because it goes right to the printer driver. So there are many advantages in using the browser as opposed to the thin client. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to show you was the well, I guess what I'll do is I'll let Anthony. I will let you talk about a little bit about the multi-bus move. I know you created the video on that because I think that's what we should cover. And since we're recording this, maybe you could cover that area as far as the multi-bus move. Explain that section to them. Let's see here. Bring it up here for you.
Okay. So when, excuse me, when you're entering an order,
it's just today. Incidentally, there are a couple of new changes here. When you first start a quote, we added the booking contact. We might want to mention that, right? Because that wasn't in the old version. And yeah.
Right. You now have the ability to add your booking contact there. And that would just be done in the customer file. You want to add all of your contacts in there, and then you can drop down from there. So you'll notice here now that there is a box with the number of vehicles, and next to it a check mark with charge per vehicle. So if you're going to put together a movement with maybe multiple buses, as Jay had there, 4 or 5 buses, you can enter the number and then choose your rate or enter a fixed rate and what that is going to be per bus, per vehicle, and add your miscellaneous rates. You'll want to enter the vehicle type. And what that will do is once you save this, it is going to create all of your items for you. The first item, we call that the parent, and you'll see that with the dollar amount next to it. And what the system has done is it's calculated the rate of each vehicle and totaled it. The other ones below with no amount next to them, we call them children, and you can't go in and make any changes. This saves a lot of issues, problems with just operator error when you're entering something. If somebody goes in to make a change, they need to make a change to the parent on that particular item, and then it'll affect all of the other buses below. A customer can call, add another bus, delete a bus, and the system will automatically calculate the changes for you. You'll see here, this says add a new vehicle with individual pricing. So you could have 4 buses at a certain rate, and then you may have another one that is maybe either a different type of vehicle, maybe they're doing something a little bit different than the other vehicles that are there, and so you can enter that as a separate charge.
Yeah, so notice that you may have 4 buses that are doing exactly the same thing. Even if they're not doing exactly the same thing, they have different itinerary, but they're being charged at the same rate. Basically, when you go to print, you'll notice that it only prints one line for those 4 vehicles. So that saves room, on the invoice, and it doesn't need to go to the next page. So here, this one, it may be a different vehicle. This one was a vehicle, 55 packs, but the one in the bottom for 535 might be the a different type of bus, and therefore you would be charging a different rate. So this makes it really nice in terms of presentation to the customer. Is when they see their invoice, they can see that they have 4 buses at 55 packs at this price, and then one 58 at this price. So it's nice and easy to read. Before, when you were printing this, you were printing the entire list, which you can still do, but you notice that it prints one line per vehicle, and that will make it go to the next page. Therefore, creates makes it a little bit confusing in terms of the uh, the format. It's just um, somebody might look at this. So why do I have all these buses listed like this? Whereas if you're printing it with the summary version of it, it just makes it easier to read for an accounts payable department if you don't want to print all the vehicles on the invoice. So now notice that it's so much cleaner. So an accounts payable clerk, looks at this invoice, or and wants to pay you. It's easy for them to read. There are 4 vehicles that were doing the same thing, or they may have done different itinerary. Each one can have a separate itinerary, and you do have the option of printing all of those vehicles with their individual itineraries. It's up to you. But when it needs to be sent to the accounts payable of that company, then you just print it in the summary version. So that's one of the major changes that you're going to see, like at Michael's Transportation. I know you guys are using the previous version, the older version, and we'll be upgrading your system this coming week, and so this is sort of like a heads up, that you will see this new terminology called add vehicles. The other terminology that we changed was instead of saying clone order, it says copy order now. So we did get some calls from the customer saying, "Oh, where's my clone button? I can't clone anymore." Basically, it's copy order does the same thing, and you're copying the entire order. Okay, so those are the 2 major things that you're gonna see in the new update this coming week. Is that now most of you other you like Don, Steve, even ECS, you guys are already upgraded, so the users are already familiar with these many options. But like Michael's Transportation, you guys are going to see this new field called number of vehicles. And so we just want to kind of give you a heads up on it, get you ready for it. And so when you first come in, after the update, the next day, well, what does this mean? Or where's my clone line? And it's not clone line, it's add vehicle. Let's see. So that's just some small terminology change, which we thought it makes it easier for a new user. Anyway, so those are the changes as far as the multi-bus move. Anthony, was there something else that you covered in that last video that we should mention, that they should be aware of in the new version?
You can choose to print all items if your customer wishes to see them. So that you do have that option right there where it says print all vehicles. So if the customer wants to see it all, they can.
Yes, another question that came up quite a bit when we did the upgrade was that when you add a vehicle, some of our customers, because they are used to always assigning a price for each vehicle, so each line would have its own pricing. They were saying that, okay, well, they're confused about the pricing. So really, if you wanted to work just like before, and you wanted to have individual pricing, you want to check this box. And once you check that box, it stays that way. We found out that some of our users just don't like to use this new feature, which is fine. So what we did was we created this option here. This was a while back when we ran into this situation with one of the updates. We added a feature here, which probably at the beginning it should be on until you understand the multi-bus move pricing. And also, you might want to say, do not add as a new group. You notice that you can have different grouping for your buses when you print them. Like, so you can have your 55 packs print first, and then your 58 packs, and then your mini buses. So that's what this first column is: one, one, two, one. You see one, 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 two. And so basically, if you check these two boxes, essentially you make it work like your version from early 2019. It's the same exact feature where you don't add it as a new vehicle. I mean, as a new group, and then also you create individual pricing for it. So you're creating each bus will have its own pricing. Excuse me. Yeah. So I think what we might do is at the beginning when you first get on with this version, make sure that these two options are set, and so that it works just like before. You won't see any difference. It will create a bus, a movement with its own price. But once you understand the concept of the multi-bus move and the same rate for all the buses, then you can turn this off, and essentially then now the new feature will kick in and you'll be able to use it. So that's one of the features that we've added. The other thing was when you go here in terms of the stops. Now the stops, we have added some really nice features to the stops where you can create almost like a 60-day tour. And you have a bus that's leaving the West Coast, is going all the way to the East Coast, and has many stops along the way, and you need to describe each movement. Anthony and I worked with an operator that had a requirement for many notes, and they wanted to show to the driver the exact stops, and we created some we added some new fields here where you can go in and put in what time you arrive at that stop. So for example, you may arrive at that stop at 10 a.m. and then you could also show on there that you're departing the next day at 9 a.m. Usually what we're finding is that you usually arrive, if it's a multi-day trip, Usually you arrive at like 6 p.m. at a certain stop, and then there are some itinerary associated with that that you can put in some notes, and then you can look it up actually. And then you may have another stop after that, so you keep inserting the different stops and describe what they're going to be doing in that stop with the so this will print on the driver's paperwork, and it'll show each stop. That's new, and these are some of the new fields that we've added. Okay, so we added notes, these additional notes. So the notes can be for the internal notes. You could also have driver notes that you just type in, and then you could have some customer notes, and then also the dispatch notes. Now the dispatch note only shows up on the dispatch grid, not on the not anywhere else. This is new. Should be aware of that. Okay, so when we print this for our driver, you notice that in the instruction section here in the bottom, it shows the notes on all the different stops where we're departing from, where we're going, arriving, departing, shows all of the movements. Okay. There are various new reports that are available, and one of the other things that we worked on in the new version is the ability for you to send. This is more like a share. We want to actually change the terminology to say share, and you share this grid with someone, like with your dispatch, or you can send it to yourself. Sometimes it gets confusing when you say send to. Um, it's almost like you're sending it to that driver, but it's really you're sharing the grid, the data that's in the grid with someone. So I can send this grid to my email as an Excel file. So this is extremely useful for a dispatcher that is leaving for the weekend and wants to have access to the trips for that day or that weekend on his phone. So he emails it, and when you open it in your inbox, so let's say you're in on your phone and you go to your Gmail or any other email client, and you open this file. So you open it, so you can see that you can open it on your phone or on your desktop, and you have access to all your trips for that week or weekend that are coming up. So that's really nice. The same is true for the customer emails. So if you want to go export your customers to a CSV file, you can go to, notice that I went to customers and then emails, copy all emails, and then I click on send to. Again, I can send it to anyone's email. So if somebody's working on a marketing campaign for you and they need access to all your customer emails, you can just simply put in their email address and click send. You're done. Okay. Some of the other things is that in the new version we now have we have fully implemented the Elevon payment processing, and we are now also partners with WorldPay. So if you're interested in integrating your um, credit card processing and do all of it in Driveware, I was just talking to earlier with Carlos at Corporate Coach, and he was telling me how happy they are with the integration. They can process from here, and it saves them a lot of time. So if you're interested in that, let us know, and we can uh, have you talk to our partners, either WorldPay or Elevon. We support both, and those are the largest players, the largest processors in the credit card industry. The other option is authorized.net. That is if you want to, you insist on staying with your own processor, you don't want to change, then you can use authorized.net as the gateway, and you can process payments from here. Now, most of you probably are processing some or a lot of credit card payments, and so having it done in one step when you record the payments from the customer saves you time. And we have basically integration for just about any processor. It's just that with Elevon and WorldPay, we will have direct integration. So it's direct. But whereas with the other processors, if you want to stay with your own, then you have to go through the authorized.net gateway, which also works well. We have some customers that are doing that. Okay. And then some of the other things that we have added under the charts, when you're looking at the driver's utilization for the time card, you can also send that to um, an email. You can send the entire all the um, columns that you see here to an Excel file. Very useful. Um, time cards. If you're looking at time cards, you can also export the time cards to your email. Just open it as an Excel. So we were getting a lot of calls from our customers saying, "Oh, I like to have this information, but I like it in Excel so that I can do my own, formatting." And so we added. If you notice, if you see any of these icons here, send to, that indicates that you can send that entire grid, whatever it's in this grid, the data that you see in the grid, you can send to your email as an Excel file and open it with Excel. Okay. The other thing, some of the other areas that we've worked on is the QuickBooks Online integration. So now we support QuickBooks Online. That project took a while, but we have completed it. It's done. Last week we talked about payroll, and in our conversation with some of our customers, we understand that there's a need for um, getting some information from the drivers when it comes to doing the payroll. And that is if you have already given the driver the job, and um, there's a sign-on time and a sign-off time, but there are a lot of information that you need to capture from the driver, and the driver wants to tell you about the trip. For example, they had traffic on the way and they want to report that. They want to be paid more because they feel like they um, had to spend more time on that trip, and so that needs to be communicated with the accounting, with the payroll department. And so what we're working on, we do have the driver web portal that's available to you, and the driver web portal gives you access, or gives your drivers access to their trips. So what we're doing is we're going to expand on that, and we are going to um, offer more options on the driver web portal. So when the driver logs in, they can see their trips, and they'll be able to also uh, insert notes. Now, obviously, we don't want the drivers to change anything. They can't change anything on the original trip. All they're doing is they're just inputting their hours, and they're inputting notes, or they're inputting receipts, like Aaron was telling us that he wants them to be able to enter this information. So what does this do for you? It will save you time, because you don't have to manually input this information. You don't have to manually go and find this information and try to read it and understand it. They will be able to input it for you. So when you come to this tab to calculate the payroll for that pay period that you're putting in, all the notes associated with that trip will appear. The notes that were entered by the driver will appear here. So then the payroll staff can just basically look at this information and determine whether the driver needs to be paid more and why. And you know, because our system calculates the time card based on the original trips sign on time and sign off time. We don't know anything about those additional events. If there was traffic, if there was any overage, we don't have that information. Therefore, there's no way for us to deal with it. But if the driver from his phone or at home, when he has time, is inputting this information, he doesn't have to call you. He doesn't have to send you anything. He just inputs it, and then you can see it here, and you can say, yes, approved, I'm going to pay you for this. Not approved, I can't pay you for this. Then you can put notes on that, on those notes, and the driver will be able to see that when he logs in. You can see that you told him that you can't, you know, uh, pay him for this particular item, or you've approved this particular overage, and you're going to pay him. And then at that point, you can add that to as another item. So for example, we're paying you initially, we were paying you for 1.7 hours, but we're going to pay you also for wait time 3 hours. So now we have the um, the time card ready for this driver, and we can either print it or email it to the driver. Okay, so that's where we're going with this. I think it will be a nice addition to our web portal to be able to handle this type of thing. Another thing that um, Southern Bus Lines is in Miami area was looking for, and he has an ELD system called Samsara, which is one of the better ones we like, and we also like Keep Trucking, and those are the two that we are going to do our integration with. Would be nice is to not only have the driver's version of the hours, but also be able to compare that with the um, ELD's readings. And so one of the things that Aaron wanted us to do was to be able to have this information that the driver is inputting exported into Excel or CSV, so that he can compare it with the actuals from the ELD device, and then that would give him a better idea of what actually took place. So that's another thing that we're not sure exactly how we're gonna do all of that part, that part of it, but definitely the part for the notes is doable, and we can definitely um, add that. Hi, Tammy. Welcome. Tabby just joined us. Hopefully she can hear us. Um, not sure if she has a microphone or if she can hear us, but we are recording this session. So I will share this. She's late. She's been busy. She was supposed to be in a meeting with me yesterday. She couldn't make it, and then she's late today. Tardy. Okay, Tammy? Yeah, I'll go ahead and publish this file to the YouTube, this recording, and then please have your office staff watch it because they'll be surprised next week when they see the new update. I mean, because there are changes, and I just want to kind of give you a heads up, and this video really will clarify a lot of the questions that you're going to have next week. Okay? Yeah. So Tammy should be able to hear us now. I see that her microphone is muted, but she can hear us. If any questions, just go ahead and type it in the chat box or just raise your hand. We'll unmute you.
Jay, did you respond to Don's questions?
No, I haven't seen the questions yet. Let me go start
Oh, very
answering the
quickly.
questions.
He said, is there a way to adjust pricing on the child buses if needed? For example, after the trip has been completed, some buses went over the original time and need to be charged overtime.
Yes. Let me cover that. Just a second, please. That's a good question. Okay. The question is, Tammy says, sorry, I'm late. She was probably one of those students that was always tardy, huh? Okay. Yeah. So let's see here. This question about the pricing that you went, if you go over or it changes. Okay. So let me read the question again. Okay. On the child buses, no. If you create a bus, if you create, if you add a vehicle like this is the part, Tammy, that we were talking about, that cloning the line item is now called add vehicle. So if you were to add another bus to this movement, and it's part of this movement, you notice that it doesn't have any pricing associated with it, right? Because it's just a placeholder for the vehicle and the driver. That's all it is. And so you can add additional charges to that, but you can add additional charges to the parent and go to the here and add additional charges, or even just change the rate altogether for the entire trip for all buses. Now, if that's something like that happens and it's just for one of the buses, what you could do is just delete that one bus and then add it with its own pricing. That would be the way to deal with it. Because this pricing that we have, two buses at $500 each, you know, that's only for like a movement that has the same pricing for all the buses. But if the movement has a different pricing, then what you could do, like for example here, when I added it with its own pricing here, then you notice that I can then go in and change that and add additional charges to that line item. Okay, or I can remove one if I want to. Yeah, so that should answer that question. Okay, Steve was just mentioning about the enlarging the screen. Okay, sorry about that. I could see if I can go to a larger display size here. Go to
Steve,
170.
there's also settings in GoToMeeting. You can zoom in and zoom out depending on your screen size. On mine, I'm at 67% and it fills my screen.
Yeah,
I
this
can
might also
zoom in
help.
even larger.
This might also help. I just changed my zoom to 175 instead of 150. So this might also help. Okay. So let me see if Don has any more question in regards to that. Okay. All right, then. Tammy, yeah. So what I was telling Leandro earlier was that you know I kind of delayed the update for your company was because um, the, um, the amount of changes, the just tremendous number of changes. Also, one of the other things that the um, the field sizes have been increased. Like we were most of our like customer fields, we've increased the sizes on all of the customer address and company name and uh, address lines, and so your system will require um, a complete restructure of the database. And because your company has been with us for more than I think 7, 8 years now, and the amount of the volume of data that you guys have, there's school bus and motor coach charter, and the size of the file is just so large that I have to schedule it for you guys because it would be something that we have to do overnight. Like I would probably have to run the procedure like around 7 or 8 o'clock, p.m. and then have you not log in um, for probably 5 or 6 hours. And I haven't been able to kind of like coordinate that with you guys because you guys are always logged in, almost like 24/7. So that's why it I didn't want to upgrade your server, and I didn't want to create any kind of downtime. Uh, Only for this version. For from any new version from here on, I don't think we're gonna have any pause. Um, and so yes, she mentions that they also work remotely and almost 24 hours. Uh, so the yes, we will definitely set this up beforehand, and that was the reason I delayed the upgrade on your server, and I knew because I know that uh, you know uh, uh, the amount of data that we're dealing with is definitely not like our normal like regular operator. So it's like the regular operator probably can upgrade to this version in less than 45 minutes, but for you guys there'll be definitely a downtime of maybe 5 to 6 hours minimum. And so I would definitely want to do it like on a weekend or after hours, and I will set up the time with Jared, and then that way there are no surprises. Okay, yeah. So the recording, since you missed the better portion of the beginning, the recording Anthony talked about the multi-bus move and the understanding the terminology. Like Tammy, this is called copy order instead of um, clone order. Now this is add vehicle instead of clone line. So you're going to run into those terminologies and you're immediately going to be like, wow, can I go back to my old version? We get that kind of a response sometimes from our users. It's like, oh my God, I'm surprised, that there are all these changes. How come you didn't tell us ahead of time? Well, we are telling you ahead of us because we've gone through this experience with our other servers, and and so when some of our other users, and they told us that, okay, well, where is the clone line? Where is our clone order? And therefore this recorded video will help you with that. And then we also cover some of the new features, and it's all in the recording that you're going to be able to watch. Okay, some of the other things that we've worked on and we think that you could benefit from is our the dispatch grid has some more new features. I showed earlier before you joined the ability to be able to send it to yourself as an Excel file. We've had the SMS function, but it's more complete now, so you can do SMS to the drivers. It's a two-way SMS, and we're improving it all the time. QuickBooks Online integration, and what were some of the other things that I think we created a document for this in an email actually. Let me bring that up actually. So it's actually an email that we created with some videos that I sent you. I sent this to you yesterday. So, the visual scheduler. I'll let Anthony explain that. Okay, let me bring that up here. Anthony, you want to go ahead and talk about the visual scheduler? I think Tammy and their group definitely will be able to benefit from it as well.
Sure. The visual schedule is a new addition to the dispatch screen, and when you have that checked, it enhances your choice of drivers. What it does is very quickly will show you who is available. Anybody who's been booked will have a colored bar next to their name. This one is showing the days, and you'll notice here this one in yellow said vacation. And so it'll show people who have requested time off, whether it is a vacation, whether it's a medical appointment, doctor's appointment, dental, personal time for maybe, they're going to see their kids' production at school. And so you can, you'll know not to book them. You'll notice the colored one there that said, had a work order number, showed the work order number, and in front of it, the green one there, it also shows the vehicle that's been assigned. So to book someone for a trip, you just click someone who is available, someone who doesn't have anything next to their name, and you can just double click on their name. By default, this will show all your drivers, but you can also, at the top, it'll say driver type all, and you can choose from your full-time drivers, your part-time drivers, and seasonal drivers. At the top there, where it shows the scale, you can use the daily scale or the hourly scale, and then you can use the scroll bar to go back and forth. This will help you when you are, maybe you have a driver who's booked early in the morning and then late in the afternoon. He has a gap, or she has a gap in the middle of the day, and you can assign him or her to another order.
Yes, very cool stuff, and it was all designed with the help of many dispatchers from US and Canada. We listened to their individual needs, and we designed this so that you can get a very overall picture of what's going on. And what's really nice, Tammy, is that if you notice that if you still like to go back to the old way, you can just uncheck that box and it'll show you the driver just like the old time, and you can assign it that way. But the um, the nice thing about this is that, as Anthony mentioned, is that it's all in one screen, and you can scroll down and see your drivers, and then see if it also shows if they're out because they're taking a vacation, and so that's really cool because it's just a one grid that make helps you decide which driver to choose. Okay, but again, if you like to go back to the other way, because we had a call, from one of our customers. Oh, I'm going to assign, and I can't do for example, the trip sheet from here, or so you can go back and forth between the two, the old way of assigning or the new way easily by just checking or unchecking this box. Okay. The other thing that, let's see, then we talked about the two-way SMS integration with QuickBooks. As far as the cloning, we also added, I showed earlier in the video how you can easily send your customers and email them to yourself. A lot of times we're getting calls from a customer saying, "Can you export the email list for us?" And because when you're on the server, it's harder when say save to the local disk. But now you can just simply email it to yourself. Okay. Another thing that we're doing, and it's still in beta, but I think one of our customers, I know Canyon Coaches started using it just a couple of days ago, is when you go to each trip, there's a document folder, and this gives you the ability to upload a document to and associate it to a particular trip. So this would be useful if you were to associate maybe a passenger manifest or maybe some itinerary that was already done by your client and it was in PDF or Excel, and they sent it to you and they said, share this with the driver or share this with anyone in your company. So you just click upload file, and then you put in the description of it, if you want to, and then you can say share this document with the driver or share this with the customer. and then you will just look up the file and upload it. Once it's uploaded, then you can click it. When you send it to the driver, it will email the driver the link to that file, and then you'll be able to keep those documents for as long as you want. And they're all associated with the trip. So say, for example, if you get audited for something and they're looking for the passenger manifest for this trip, you don't, it's not just like searching for a needle in a haystack, because it could be anywhere, right? It could be on somebody's local drive, could be on your um, Google email or your Outlook email, somebody's email, and it's hard to find. But this way, it's there and you can find it. If you're using the browser, there's just one extra step that you have to do from your PC to the server, which is you upload the file to our server first using the upload feature, and then once that's done, then it's available to you for associating to the trip here. And so I'm going to say this is the uh, schedule. This is a schedule. It's a very, very complex schedule that's done in Excel. So I'm going to show you how this is done. So it'll create a so it's already got a there's already a file already there called Excel, so I can delete it. But just to show you, I'm going to rename this really quick so you can see what it looks like. So I'll create a different document. So let me go to C colon. I had something here. Okay, I'm going to call this new. So because that file already exists on that folder for that company, it doesn't let you do like a duplicate unless you delete the other one. So I'm going to go ahead and send this one up to the server. This is only if you're using the browser. It does that. Just a second. The browser one is acting up. Anyway, so once you upload it, then it has the link. Let's wait for it to finish. Again, this is our beta version, so things like this might be possible. Okay, let's see. Okay, so let me try one more time. Could also be the go to meeting. Because I know we've used this quite often. Doesn't like it. Anyway, yeah, so that's also a new thing that we've added. It's only like 1 week old, and that's in the new version. So the document management, basically, it's part of it now. All right. Any questions? Let me close this really quick. Any other questions? Anthony, do we have any more questions? Let me close this here.
No other questions.
Oh, I see there's duplicates here. Okay. Let me see if I can close this. What it's doing is probably just created too many of these uploads. Okay. So there are no other questions. We'll go ahead and proceed with the update probably sometime next week for Michael's. I'll send all the necessary information to Jared to plan that. And then for those of you interested in the payroll, if you have any additional ideas for us, let us know. If you're interested in, learning about the driver's web portal, let us know and we can set you up. I think Hani, we set you up with your with your account, and I think you should be all set. You could try it. I think
Yeah, I did try it.
good,
I did try it, Jay. If
good.
I did send you some information on it,
Yes,
and we can talk quickly.
yes. No, I can answer your question on those. Actually, I did see that emailed earlier. There were two questions, I think. One was that um, can you set different levels? Yes. In fact, if you notice, there is the driver, customer. I mean, yes, you can set up a user as a customer. You set up a driver, a user, and then it's the dispatcher and also an admin. So you can set up different levels in the web portal. That was one of your questions. What was the
Yeah,
second question?
the second question was, I did set up a couple of tests. So I also tried to go into the web portal on my phone via a browser,
Yes.
and I could see it. It asked for my username and password, but neither of the two users, myself or the driver user, could even log in. It kept saying invalid credentials.
Oh, that's because, let me start a new um, session here. Just a second. I'm going to start a new session. Just a minute. I'll show you why. The reason is that when you set up a new user, a new driver, you need to make sure that you assign that uh, driver to an active record, driver active record, and so that's how you associate the driver with the um, you associate the driver with the actual login. That's the first step. Okay, so once you've associated the driver with the driver's record with the login name, the driver can change their password, and you can assign a password to them and send it to them, a username and a password. Once they log in, the first thing that the system does, it looks up that driver in the driver file. So therefore, maybe you're missing that step. But once you assign you as an admin, when you log in, you can change those drivers' name and passwords any way you like. So therefore, that might be the step that you're missing, but that's how it works basically. Okay. And then what was your second question that was in the email? I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when I tried to set up a couple of things, number
Mhm.
one, there is no dispatch per se. There's
Well,
admin, driver, and customer.
yes. So if you set up as an admin, basically in the web portal, admin works like as a dispatch because really the functionality that's available currently in the web portal is only at a dispatch level anyway. But there's no
Gotcha.
reason why we couldn't later add more levels so that maybe you don't, because dispatch really realistically can see all the trips, and they can see all the drivers on all the trips.
Well,
Um,
my only concern was having somebody who has the capability to delete and somebody who does that by mistake versus just being able to go through the trips or make changes or updates or whatever. And I know this is not DriveWare, this is more for the driver's portal, but that's the only reason I was asking, can you do a dispatch without the admin rights? That's all.
yes, no, definitely I can add one more layer. However, in as it stands, the reason we didn't add that layer before is that as it stands, the web portal for the drivers really, I mean, for the dispatcher really doesn't have much functionality other than seeing all the trips. They can just see the trips and maybe just
Got it.
change the
Okay,
driver and change the
that's fine.
vehicle. So there is no
Okay.
functionality for like deleting an entire order or entire line item. They can only just view also. So it is sort of like a dispatch level anyway. But later on, as we add more functionality to the web app, because that's going to be our web app, and
Okay.
when you can do everything, most of the stuff that you can do with the regular program with that one, then the additional layer makes sense, like you're saying.
Okay.
Yes.
And then as far as the access, I am in the table where I have the two users, myself and a driver test.
Yes.
Uh, where is it that you mentioned that I have the capability to say you have access to the web portal?
Yes, if you go into, let me bring up my screen really quick. I'm working on getting this.
Thanks.
Okay, just a minute. I'm going to bring up another browser. Okay. It's running slow. I think it's related to also the GoToMeeting. Okay, just a minute. Just one more minute, and then if it doesn't work, we can. Okay. So I think it's coming up now. All right. I will show you with the demo account that I have. Just 1 minute. Go to meeting. Show my screen. Okay. So in the demo portal, I think it's LX8D. That's our demo site. I'm going to log in as an administrator, and once I'm logged in as an administrator, I can go set up users, right? So I'll set up, like say Anthony, and you notice that Anthony's access level is 200, which is a driver, right? Now, you notice here, this is the driver ID that's in the main database, okay? And what I do is here, I go here and I look up Anthony and I select it. Now, this driver ID that's created for the web portal associated with this driver in Driveware. Now, your question, I remember your question, your second question, that you were asking about synchronization. The data is being shared uh, with both the web portal and the back office. So really there's no need for exporting or synchronizing. What if they change something in the dispatch? The driver will immediately see it. So once you've assigned that driver to that record, that new record that you created as a driver, now if that driver logs in with that password, he can see the trips Anthony pass. So if I log out, you notice that if I log out now, I log out as Anthony and pass, I can see all
No,
my
no, and
trips.
here it works. In this web page, it works. What I'm saying is on the portal, on the phone is where I was having the challenge.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah, it shouldn't really. I mean, when you change it to a phone, it'll look like this. Let me change it to like a regular phone. Like this is a that's why we have that video for the drivers, because you notice that when they're on the phone, they have to click this button here, and they have to click on trips to see the trips. Now they are looking at it in a responsive form, so the trips are listed sort of like a scrolling format. Same functionality, except it's designed for the phone. So just pay attention to this hamburger menu on the top. Let me go all the way to the top. Pay attention to this main hamburger menu here. That's where you look at your trips.
Okay, I guess to get into this particular app
Yes.
or portal or whatever it is that you're using on the phone, before you get to the menu, what I'm saying is I go,
Yes,
I type in.
you send them the ECS, .mydriver.com. This would be your,
Yeah, that's the one that I gave them.
Right.
That's the one that I went on to the Chrome browser on the phone.
Right.
And tried to log in,
Right.
and it wouldn't accept the credentials.
Well, see, then it's okay. Most likely you are using the HTTP instead of HTTPS. You have to use HTTPS. This question came up quite a few times in when we were first implementing another company. They were using HTTP, so they were going to this page and logging in, which is wrong. It makes a big difference because that web portal is running on HTTPS. So make sure that
Okay.
this is HTTPS, not HTTP. That's the problem. I remember somebody else reported this issue, and we looked at it and we saw that they were logging into the port 80 instead of port 443 because HTTPS is 443, and so that's why you're logging into the wrong portal. You should be seeing this screen, not the other one.
Okay. Okay.
HTTPS.
It was a different screen. It
Yes,
was a different screen.
it should
That's
be
why.
this.
Okay.
Just take a
Okay,
picture of
different screen.
that and make sure that that S is there. Then you'll be able to log in. That's definitely that problem, most likely. Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
will try that.
Definitely, and that's definitely will solve that, and you should be able to log in. Yeah, you'll like it. You'll like that, especially with the way that we're going with you, and with ECS. If we can add those payroll features, I think make the payroll person.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah,
So,
it does. Yeah, yeah.
okay.
Cool.
Now, I guess my other question is, rather than building, the pyramid all over again, let's call it, can we take the list from Driveware, an updated list from Driveware and feed it rather than having to add drivers manually?
Well, the
Or is it,
reason we haven't gone that route is because we see that a lot of our customers start with a few drivers that they know that they're tech savvy, and they add those users, and then they create, and then but that's also possible. I mean, we could add a feature in the web portal that says import drivers, and it'll just
yeah, I
create.
was just asking. I mean, it's not that big of a
Yes,
deal
no,
one
no,
way or
no,
the
it can
other.
be done. I
And
just
then
especially for
ideally,
probably
I do want to
your
pilot.
company. For your
Yeah,
size company, probably makes more sense. Yeah, it's
yeah.
definitely something that I can consider. But I think that once you start the whole process of creating the user um, account is not that complex, and you should be able to do it at least with several of your drivers for test purposes. And then once you're happy, then you can share that video with the rest. One that we
Okay, so
sent you.
what's going to be the trigger to sync between this and Driveware for their trips, for their hours,
Good
for,
question. Yeah, good question. So basically, if you notice that when you log in as an
yeah,
admin and you're setting up the users, that part that I showed you, where you associate the web portal user with, let me log in. Oh, I'm in the wrong. So I need to go my demo, not yours. Yeah, that part where let me go back to, because when you set up um, yeah, it's much easier to do it with this,
yeah, that's fine.
with the desktop, because you normally would be on a desktop doing that anyway.
Yes.
So you go to set up users. The question that you had is how do you associate them? Is the key is this field here, this driver ID, which is an internal number that gets assigned to each driver. It's not
Okay,
it's not
so
the
whatever I
driver,
have in Driveware
right?
or driver ID, that's the syncing
It's not the
rule.
same thing as the driver number. It's an internal number that we use to keep the referential integrity between the different tables. So it's an internal number that's not exposed to the operator. And so when you do this lookup, you're basically saying James is now assigned to this, James, and then the password. So this is what it's linking this user with all the orders that are in the trip detail master, trip detail file.
Okay.
That's how it links it. Now,
But
so
the reason I'm asking
you're not
this,
exporting anything, you're not importing anything. This is live.
understood.
Yeah.
I understand that, but
Good.
I guess the reason I'm asking is currently there is a data set that makes up, let's call it the driver ID. We are changing it to match the payroll system driver ID rather than the current one that has been in DriveWare. So we're going to update the profiles in DriveWare with a new driver ID,
No problem.
right?
Because
Okay.
we don't use that. So you can go change 12 Lark to 12 Larkson. You know, that will not change the relationship in it because we're not using 12 Lark. We're using the internal number, which is in this case 16.
Okay, where in DriveWare is this driver ID?
Right here. It's a good question also. You can't change that because that's you're familiar with the sys IDs, right?
Yes.
Yes. So it's a sys ID. That's an internal number. In SQL, usually it's an auto numbering number that gets generated. In our system, it's also same. It generates it automatically, and the user doesn't have access to it. But you can see it if you like. I can show you where it is.
Well, because if I'm going to add it to this particular person, then I need to know where it is.
Sure.
Right?
See, no, you don't need to know where it is. When you do the lookup, it finds it for you. This is the record ID. You know, see here. See, you have the number that you change,
Okay.
12 Lark, right?
Okay.
Now, 12 Lark is record number 12. You see?
Yeah.
That's the record number that we assign to the web portal, not 12 Lark. So if you change 12 Lark and you had a relationship between your driver and the web portal, that relationship will still exist. It still knows that has the correct information. So you can change the numbers. What I'm saying, you can change these numbers any way you like. It's not going to change anything in our integrity of our system because what we use is our own internal number.
Understood. So the lookup feature,
Yes.
when I'm building a driver,
Yes, right
I'm
here.
clicking to look him up.
Yes.
Or her up. So I click on that.
Right.
And it's going to search for based on name or based on.
You can search any way you like. You can click on the first name and search for Lark, and find it,
I got it. Okay.
James,
Okay.
find it, or
That's what I was.
you can search by last name, last name or company, but it doesn't matter because once you select that, then it assigns the James is record number sysid 16, but James is number is 17 night, which you can change.
Okay.
You go ahead and change that. That's not a problem.
That was, it's just a nomenclature about, when somebody says driver ID, there are 1,001 things that are quote unquote associated with that. So I just wanted to make sure as we're updating things, it doesn't throw things off.
Yeah, so no, that's fine. Yeah, you can definitely change that and you'll be all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I think we definitely should. It's a good thing that you attended this session because we answered a lot of questions for you there. That's good. Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions, Anthony, that we need to answer before we end? We've definitely gone over time. Oh, and Tammy is asking if they have access to this. Yes, you have the web portal, but I don't think that your company, Tammy, used it much. I did give it to you a few years back and was available to you. So let's see. No, Tammy, your question was, is this part of the upgrade? This was available to you a while back. You never used it. Same thing with ECS, Hani. This was available to them. I mean, we've introduced it to them, but part of the problem is that they don't come to the meetings. They don't spend the time. They don't have the time, most likely.
I understand that, and
that's part of the problem.
we're trying to look at potential changes.
Sure.
Like I said, I'm more of an advisory role for them at this point, and I'm looking at anything that is currently manual that could be, transferred. If we can move 50% of the drivers, it'll make it a heck of a lot easier than 100% everybody printing a time card, going through a manual process, editing, reviewing, all of the above. It's a pain. But later on, we'll talk also about the reporting that we get.
Sure.
And at some point, I'd like to see what we can get in a collective database, or not necessarily a database, but a payroll report, like we talked about, is that, let's assume that we have the entirety of the drivers put onto the system, right? And 99 or 95% of the drivers make no changes. They're fine with their hours. Okay, so one report just prints out everybody from Jay to Anthony to Hanny to Tammy to whoever. These are the hours for each person on the right-hand side, right? You have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Each day has its hours. Total hours, 55 hours. That's the number. Okay, nobody's challenging, nobody's adding, nobody's subtracting. So we just go with those hours, 55 hours. The only exceptions would then show up on an exceptions report. And those are the ones that then either the payroll, dispatch, whoever, the manager says, yes, approved, or no, stay with the regular hours.
I like your idea. I think that's works the best and probably will reduce the number of
Oh, I
calls.
mean, they do payroll basically printing each individual time card.
Yes.
When you have 137, 140 drivers, that's 140 sheets of paper that you're sitting there reading through, trying to figure out the overlaps that we talked about, the changes that the drivers are asking for. It's like mind-boggling.
Yes. No, I agree. I've been in some of the offices where this is being done, and I've noticed the same thing. And we have the components, Annie. The technology is there. It's just,
Yeah.
it's the design. And I think a lot of companies, even like Tammy's company, uh, they have 3 yards. She just puts a message on the chat. They have the same issue. And so if we solve it here, obviously other
And
companies
ultimately, I'm sure with Tammy, she may want to see a filter by yard.
by yard, yes,
So you
yes,
can say, okay, my payroll for yard 1 is more than yard 2. What's the difference between the two? Do some comparisons, do some, incentives to where we can adjust. These are all some of the elements, and it just makes it hard when you have 140 sheets of paper that I have to read through
yes.
to figure out where the variances
Absolutely. And
are.
I think even in the case of MTS, it's even more. I think they have even more drivers than
Yeah,
ECS. So I mean, definitely, I mean that's something that we can work together. The technology is there. We do have the components for the web portal that the drivers can put in their special requests. We could implement that, and then when it comes to payroll, then those will pop up, and they'll,
yeah,
like you said, it'll show the exceptions. Like this one is all the driver
exactly.
doesn't challenge anything, so then there's nothing red, and then but if there's something in there, then maybe it'll show up in a different color, and then
Or maybe it's two different reports. One
true.
is everything is blessed. Just take the total number of hours, find that person in the payroll system, just put in 55, we're done.
Yes,
So 100 out of the 140 are all clean. Just pump them in,
yes, I
or
agree.
even do an export of a file, or do whatever, to simplify the process.
Absolutely, and the reason we do these sessions, these Wednesday sessions, is for this purpose. Because if we're sitting here as programmers, and they're sitting there as the operators, and we're all doing our own things, we don't understand the challenges, and we
Yeah,
don't we don't understand what's needed uh, by the payroll staff or the operator, then we're not going to go anywhere. but these sessions, the more we're talking about this, the more you guys are giving us input. Like last week, remember, like Aaron was here, and he doesn't have a big operation, but he has the same challenge, and he's trying to, tackle it with as
Most
little
part
as,
of it is payroll.
yeah,
You know, I mean,
exactly.
and payroll in current environment should not be as painful as it is here.
Yes, exactly. I agree. I think part of it has to do with the fact that there are definitely things that can change based on the trip, and because of the traffic or because of some per diem and additional expenses, and that's what kind of makes it challenging because what you start with, if it's regular time card, you clock in and clock out, but in the case of a
Yeah, but
multi-bus
those
move,
should be your exceptions.
yes,
Okay, not each and every trip you should print a card that has all the information on it, and then you have to check, are there certain overlaps because dispatch didn't do what they're supposed to do. You know, there are so many factors that affect the variables that end up with a need for auditing that should be eliminated. Once that's eliminated, you have a clean report. The only thing that needs to be attended to are the exceptions. And to your point, yes, there is going to be traffic. There is going to be, a change in the start time of a trip. But then that change, if permanent, has to be fixed. Not make it every week where you have to make an exception.
yes, I agree.
So
I agree. So we'll
anyway,
tackle it. I'm making notes on everything, and of course these recordings will help for us to um, understand the need. But as I understand it, if the driver logs in, if we can give them a new option associated with each trip for entering, approving their hours or challenging it,
yes.
so that they can, if they're challenging it, then we could give them an option to put their challenge, reason, and those will then
Yeah.
appear on the
Exactly.
payroll.
And maybe we get to a certain point where we have 3 or 4 reasons. We don't want 200 reasons that, all of a sudden payroll is out of whack, right?
Right.
You want to be able to go into a report, a database of a month, 2 months, 3 months, a quarter, whatever the fact is. And then you go back and you say, okay, I had to pay 200 additional hours. The most common factor, 80% of the reason was because there was snow. Okay. We know it was related to weather. You're done.
And Tammy keeps saying absolutely agreed. She's putting messages
It's
in the
just
chat, and
something
she doesn't have a
from,
microphone. Otherwise, I'm sure she would have jumped
yeah.
into to this
And Tammy, I don't
call.
mean to hog the thing. It's just,
Yeah.
I like I said, I'm working as an advisor for this group,
Yes. No.
and
You have
we're looking
experience
at,
with the rental, car rental before, and
yeah,
it's
and
just
what I've done is my role has always been the user interface with the IT side. So to understand where the challenges are operationally, process-wise, et cetera, and bring them to the IT. And the IT then, to the point that Jay was making earlier, unless IT understands what the challenge is, they're thinking everything is well, and on the user side here, they're saying, well, this is what we have, so we'll work with what we have. No, you can
yeah.
improve everything.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I mean that's the thing. It's one of the missing links that I've seen, and that's the reason Anthony and I started these sessions, was because we heard from Dawn, and early on when Dawn stage Sundance stage was getting on board, he would bring us questions in regards to credit card processing. There were some challenges there, and we resolved them. We solved most of as much as we could. We've solved those issues. So those have gone away, and now we're dealing with the payroll. And Tammy's saying that you're asking all the all the questions and all the things that she was going to ask anyway. So she's saying thank you for asking these, because that's the same challenge they have, and so we are now seeing that there's a pattern here that payroll our payroll module needs some work, and we won't touch it unless until we agree on the specifications. Like I would probably
Oh, absolutely,
by next week
absolutely.
mock up something where you
Yeah.
can see what it's going to look like afterwards, and then you're going to tell me, oh yeah, that's
And I want to review it with the end users here as well,
yes,
because I don't want to your point earlier on the other piece with the calendar, the driver's schedule, I don't want just to throw surprises at them that will, get them out of whack. But at the same time, slowly but surely, and ultimately, like I said, for management to be able to go in and say, okay, I want to see a quick dashboard. Where's everything that is running efficient? Where are the outliers? Why are the outliers happening?
hmm
Are they because of a good reason or a bad reason? If it's a bad reason, mismanagement, not proper scheduling, whatever the case is, address it to that reason rather than I have no clue where to start.
yes. No, I agree. I think that continuing these sessions, we will fix it. We will add the features.
I
Tammy
appreciate
is
it.
saying that they have their leadership meetings on Wednesdays, and that's why they haven't been able to attend, but they're gonna try to. We might be able to move it to a different day. That's something that Anthony has to decide. I'm not sure. We can maybe move it, try it on a different day um, uh, in the following weeks. But um, this is very important. I think this is very important to you guys, and it's also important to us because we don't want to waste our time and work on something that gets never used. There's so many features in the program. There's probably like 50% of the features that we have just not being utilized because
That's
it was not that important to the user, I guess, at the beginning. A customer
or
feedback.
unknown
You know,
or unknown.
yeah,
The features
customer.
may be there, but they just never tried it. There was a
Exactly.
mod.
Yeah, and that how would you know that the feature exists, or how would you know how to really use it? If you don't get some kind of a training on it, or if you don't come to one of these sessions, or one of the
Exactly.
training class, or take the time and watch a training video online, which it sounds like you have because you've gone this far, right? You implement. I just sent this instructions to you yesterday for the web portal. You already have it up and running. You already got some drivers in there. So you watch those videos to learn how to use it, or you attend these classes to learn how to use it. If you don't, um, you could have the best software in the world, and it's just never going to be utilized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, my claim to fame is when people ask me, what do? I tell them I do nothing and get paid a lot of money for it. And ideally, that's what I want to do is to seriously set a system up to do everything that it does and does it best. And all I want to do is be able to look at something within 10 seconds, make up my mind, what is going on with my business? Is it working? Is it not working? And then the rest of the day spend either with my customers or with my employees. That's it.
Yes, that's what Tammy's saying. Tammy's saying amen to that.
Yeah.
It's it's it's
So,
interesting. It's the same model that we have here in Driveware. We design some things here that help us with our um, most challenging areas. That one of them for us is our we're in a different model. We are in a subscription model, and we have credit card processing. So we solved all of that by implementing tokenization, or
yeah.
by a pay link for credit card payment. And most of that technology is also available to you guys in your company if you're willing to use it. And it's basically it was
I mean,
taking us.
we'll talk more about the credit
Yeah,
card processing
exactly.
because that could be a
No,
solution
just
that
give
they.
just I was just using that as a topic that
No, no, no. It makes
it used
sense.
to take us like hours and hours every week to uh, chase down the not that the credit cards were like they weren't like declined, they were just because they were like expired, or they were just simply like a different they were given a different card, and they were going to not use that card, and we were having so many problems trying to get the people on the phone to update these cards, and we just solved it by technology. Now it's
Yeah.
tokenized, and we can send it, and we don't have to touch the cards, and we don't have any more calls about that, and that's what you want. You don't want any more
Part
calls
of
from
the challenge
drivers.
here is part of the challenge here is actual acceptance of credit cards and what they do when they get the information of the credit card. And of course, with current PID rules and regulations,
Yes.
it's,
Well, that's a
you
whole
know,
different topic, we can get into, in a different session.
yeah,
But the
understood.
idea is that basically you want to eliminate the number of calls from the
Touch points.
drivers,
You want the
number
touch
of
points to go
questions
away.
from the drivers, because I
Yep.
can just imagine with 100 plus drivers, the number of calls that this poor payroll staff gets, from the drivers. You have my hours wrong, or it's not like this, it should be like this. Whereas with the web portal, the driver has access from the phone to all of that information, and also any communication back from the payroll, and it's all in the same page, and they don't have to call. You should just go and
Yeah.
take a look at your
And
portal.
ultimately,
Yeah.
for me, I want to get to a report at the end of every month, at the end of every quarter. I want to see how many people are consistently challenging their hours.
Yes, yes,
In
perfect.
today's environment, I have to go to 140 pages every week to say, okay, it's John, or it's Hanny, or it's Dan, or it's Tammy. I want to get to a report that quickly tells me in the last 90 days, Hanny challenged his hours 14 times, and he's the highest on the list. Hanny, come on in. I want to see why is it, either your hours are wrong, we're sending you on longer trips, your traffic is horrible, so let's fix your hours, or you're trying to cheat me out of 14 hours.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. That's a perfect thing, and it could just be a simple grid, or it could be a report. Yeah, either one.
So,
Absolutely.
all right.
Yes, we'll work on it. I'm glad that you have been involved with ECS. I think it's the best thing that they've done, and I would also recommend you to other companies that we have.
Thank you.
I
Thanks.
honestly think that's part of the thing. I mean, they're great people there. I've enjoyed working with them for many, many years.
Yeah.
It's just that we've never had this type of communication with them. That's just because they're
And
busy.
to your point,
They're
everybody's
busy.
trying to operate. Exactly. So somebody has to come in from a different viewpoint, look at the process, go, is this the best that you're doing? And when they answer yes, start looking for solutions.
Well, that story with the ham. And the the daughter was watching her mom and said, "Why, mom? Why are you cutting both sides of the ham when you put it in
Yeah.
the oven?" She said, "I really don't know. Let's go ask your grandma. I was always wondering about it too." So they go ask the grandma, "Grandma, why are you cutting the ham on both sides when you put it in the oven?" She said, "Well, if you look, my oven is really small, so it doesn't fit in there. So I'm forced to cut it on both ends." So I think I think that story is true. That sometimes you look at it and say,
Absolutely.
why are we doing it this way? Why? Because we've been doing it for so many years. We just
And
forget to
that's the way
ask.
we know. That's the way we're comfortable with. Don't
Yeah,
rock the boat. Just leave me alone.
exactly, exactly. Don't rock the boat. I think that's also another thing. It's like you don't want to change. We're constantly challenged with that. It's just it is
Yeah.
challenging. Anyway, we are out of time. I have to get ready for another meeting soon.
Yep.
But we'll continue this in the next sessions, and we'll get to the bottom of it. Thank you, Hani. Thanks,
Thank you,
Tammy.
folks.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Talk
Okay.
soon.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.